I'm sorry, y'all. I'm late. I couldn't get on. I don't know what was wrong. But anyway, today is day 21 of the journal challenge. And tonight we are going to be talking about transition. We have been together for 3 weeks now. Today marks day 21. And we've been moving right along. And so as we talked about vision on 2 days, and we talked also about community on yesterday, I thought that it would be really fitting for us today to talk about what it means to transition, because as we live out our vision and we make choices that are in alignment with who we want to be, we have to realize that there are some transitional things that are going to happen in our life. And so what I want us to kind of look at is, okay, when I'm in a period of transition, what usually happens? Am I forced to make that transition, or is it something that I choose? So think about that. Think about your life and just kind of take inventory of what has went on during your journey, and if it's been a forced transition or if it's been something that you have chosen to do. Hey Lori, I kind of got a little late today because I couldn't connect. So before you do that, I want you to look at your day today. You know, we always start with ourselves and look at our day to make sure that we've made choices today that are in alignment with our best self, and that we are making choices that are in alignment with who we want to be. So think about today and kind of think about how that played out for you today. And not only that, I want you to take inventory over the last 3 weeks. We've talked about a lot of different concepts, a lot of different questions have been asked, and so hopefully you've been able to pull back some layers. We've moved, you know, from day one we talked about being in bondage, and here we are today talking about transitioning. And so definitely take a look at that and think about, what have I really done? What intentions did I set out? Remember, we talked about intentions. What intentions have I set? Have I been mindful of the boundaries that I have set up? Who is it that I'm aspiring to be? And have I made choices that are in alignment with that? So think that first. As we think about transition, I want you to also think about any fear that you might have around change. It's not always easy, and transitions are not always negative in our life. We definitely have things that are positive, but we have to understand that a lot of times our fear of transition is connected to our fear of losing our identity, because anytime there's a change, it changes something about you. So for instance, when you get married, that's a transition. It's not considered a negative one, it's considered a positive one, but that changes your identity. When you become a parent, you lose your identity as, you know, not being a parent. Sometimes we are scared to make transitions in our career, our businesses, because we might lose whatever identity that is tied to that, especially if it's something that has been part of who you are for years. We talked about freedom on one day and how we need to give ourselves permission to be ourselves. And so if you are fearing something, think about, are you giving yourself permission to make that transition? Now, of course, in life we have things that happen to us that we do not welcome. There are definitely some things that are unwelcome transition, and they are forced in a way because they are part of life. And we think about transition in the form of losing a loved one when they make their transition from this physical realm. We have to think about that. However, what I want you to have awareness around is you get to choose the way you cope with transitions that are not welcome in your life, and not to necessarily suffer through things that are not necessarily the feel-good moments in our life. So take some inventory and think about some things that maybe you want to change in your life. We talked yesterday about our community and our tribe, and I told you to look at your tribe and see what needs to be cultivated and nurtured in your tribe or in yourself in order to be in alignment with your vision. And so when you think about that, that is about making a transition. Okay, and so when we think about a transition, all of that is moving from one stage to another, moving from one space to the next. So it's a process. We should always be flowing and moving, never stagnant, which is why you need to be very mindful of the people who are in your tribe and the people who you let into your energetic space. Okay, so if you think about the things that you have chosen to change, and transitions that you have welcomed in your life, then you can have a point of reference to know that, hey, I can make changes and it's okay. But when you think about things that you feel like were forced or things that you did not welcome, I want you to take a hard look on what you did to cope with those transitions. And sometimes it might be eating, not eating. You might work really hard. I know I've had some things going on in my life, and I feel like I just would rather just work, because I didn't really want to face what maybe was going on personally, so think about that. Or maybe you're a person who, when things go on that you don't welcome, that you can't work, you don't want to get out the bed, or, whatever that is. So you need to look at what your coping mechanisms are and figure out ways to cultivate and nurture healthy coping mechanisms. Now, that is a whole nother video about ways to cope, so I'm not really going to go into too much detail in that tonight, but I just want you to kind of take inventory of what you do, okay? Another thing, when we think about transitions, we need to also look at what type of support system do we have, and do we reach out and have a healthy network? We talked about community yesterday, and so think about your tribe and how that relates to the transitions in your life. If you are able to have good connectivity, if there's cohesiveness between the people who you love and trust, so that when you have transitions, you are able to be in a healthy space. Remember, we talked about making sure we are in alignment with people who are aspiring and have the same value systems that we do. Not necessarily your journey twins, because everyone is on their own journey, but you definitely want to be around people, the people who you spend the most time with, who challenge you, encourage you, and tell you the truth in love. And so if you feel like you're stagnant and stuck in a place, look at what type of fear that you have around it, and look at who you feel that you are. Remember, I said your transitional fear is usually tied to your identity. And so if you feel like, oh my goodness, I don't want to get this divorce because I'm scared of what people are going to say. And maybe I've been Mrs., Ladderberger for a long, long time. I chose the name Ladderberger because I didn't want to say a common last name and anybody think I was talking to them, because we don't know Mrs. Ladderberger, right? So say you maybe you don't want to switch your career because you've been in this career field for so long, and you are scared of what people might say if you maybe venture out to start your own business. Anything like that. All of our transitions do not have to be negative, but you need to look at the way you cope with them, okay? Let's see. Oh, okay, so let's talk about choices. We're talking about the transition. So what I want you to think about for your next question would be, remember your first question was, are your transitions forced or by choice? So you're just going to answer, if after you take the inventory, are they forced or usually by choice? Okay? And so I want you to look at what you are choosing today. I'm not talking about tomorrow, because we need to stop putting things off. Think about what you are choosing today, and how can a decided transition make a positive impact in your life? Think about your identity. Think about who you feel that you are, whether everyone knows, and whether you introduce everyone to your true self or not. Think about, do you send your representative? Okay? And so think about your true self, and think about a decision you need to make, a transition that you need to make, and how it will have a positive impact on your life. Now remember, your journey in your life, of course, overlaps and affects the people who are close to you. So when I say your life, I'm talking about everything that encompasses your life. We are in the 3rd week of our calendar year, and of course the 3rd week of our journal challenge. And so I know that maybe 3 weeks ago you had some major moves in your head or some intentions, and so kind of revisit those and revisit what you've been doing the last 3 weeks, and think about, are you resisting change because you are scared, and what the fear is rooted in. Okay, and so today's affirmation is, the choice of change is always available. The choice of change is always available. Now, it doesn't matter your age, your gender, your race. It doesn't matter, any of your situations. You have to understand that you can choose to make a change, even if it's a small one. So remember when we talked about setting our intentions in a big way, and then looking at exactly what our goals are and that are in alignment with our intentions. And when you think about things that are in alignment with who you want to be, you can look at the choices that you have to make the changes that will get you closer to your vision. If you have not watched all of the videos, I really encourage you to make sure you watch day 1 and 2 about bondage and boundaries. And I also encourage you to make sure you watch days 18, 19, and 20, because we talked about clarity, we talked about vision, and we talked about our community. Now, I'm not saying that all the other ones are not important. We've talked about so many things, but I want you to be mindful, which was one of our words too. I want you to be mindful that as we are closing out our, journey together this month, I really want you to be mindful that you can make the changes that you want, and that you have that power within yourself. I told you on one day that we always look outside of ourselves when we think about God, but we know that God is in us. And so we do need to look to God. We need to look to the divine God and the source that God has put in us, because God is everywhere. It's not just in the sky. God is everywhere. So think about that when you're being fearful and when you're really not sure what you need to do. Okay? So that is all I have for you tonight. It is, again, day 21. We talked about transitions, and tomorrow I will be here again at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you go to the link in the description so that you can get access to the prior questions on the other days and the videos from the last 3 weeks, or you can also text journal 30 to 39492. Good night.